Okay, you're on.
Okay. Hi, I'm Miriam. Thanks for coming. We're going to go over some pumps today and some pertinent information that I need you to know. I thought we'd start with the Vista pump. This is the one that everybody hates because they don't know it really. It's a workhorse. It does not make any problems for you. There's no flaws in it. It has a little quirks that you need to know about like the rest of us. So, here's the first quirk. It must be plugged in all the time. Even when you are not there for the 3 weeks in between, it must be plugged in. It has an internal battery which will die, and if it does, your pump has to be returned. It cannot be recovered. It won't record again. So, have the patient plug it in. If you have to move it someplace and he has to be unplugged for a while, it's good for 3 hours only, and then it must be plugged in again. And what it'll start to do is just beep and slow down, and you won't get your... Hello. Okay, so it has the tubing for the Vista. It's a dedicated tubing. It must be a Vista tubing. Won't work on anything else. It looks like a regular tubing, but it has one little thing in here that it doesn't have, that none of the others have. This little thing right here is an anti-siphon, so it will not backflow, and it won't allow too much of a surge to happen. They come with and without filters, and it'll tell you on the package if it's a 1.2 or a 0.22 filter. Okay. Other than that, it's a regular filter. Here's the thing. It's got this flow on it, but it doesn't work. This doesn't work. You can open it up. It's not going anywhere because it's got the anti-siphon on. But it does have to be open, of course, when you use it. Okay? So, this is how it goes. It's got a pole usually. And open. You have to put it in here, open it up, put it in here, push it all the way down. And this is why it has to have a pole. You can't do it on a table. When it was initially started, this pole had a little IV pole that came out of here, and it had feet. And the feet kept it up off the table so that you could set it on a table. The feet broke off, the IV pole wherever, so it ended up to be a pole-mounted pump. Your air check to see if there's air in the tubing is right here. It's down here in this little thing. So if you don't have it in here firmly, it's going to tell you air in line, air in line. You go out of your mind. The other thing that it has that's a little quirk is it will say air in line for whatever reason almost every time you turn it on, and it will drive you nuts. What you do is you take an alcohol pad, run it right down the pathway of this thing, all the way down, nice and firm, make sure you cover it all. They tell us that part of the reason that happens is that on the outside of this tubing from manufacturing, after a few uses, it begins to shed some part of its plastic on it, and it jams up the pump. So once it's cleaned, I do it now every time I use the pump. Just do it, it's easier. So load it in like so. This is just a guide, it really doesn't do anything. Load it in like so, all the way down. The new ones now, there's a new model of this, and they tell me it's just a little bit, this is a little tighter down here, so when you close the door, just give it a little tug like that. And that's it. Quorum is the only company that uses this pump. It comes pre-programmed. The only thing that's going to happen is if your program changes. Here's the rub. If the doctor's orders say 400 mLs in 4 hours and does not specify how to break it down, they're going to program it at 100 mLs an hour times 4 hours. That's not going to help you if you need to titrate it up, and with IgG just about all the time you do, and a lot of other drugs. So it has to be changed. The pump has to be changed. If you change the pump, you must call Quorum. Speak to the pharmacist in the area. If it's a Suffolk patient, it's a Suffolk pharmacist. Nassau, and whatnot. Every area has a pharmacist. And they're supposed to know these. So, it turns on by this. This one is preset. And the first question here is the biggest problem with this pump. Is this a new therapy? And the answer is no. It is not a new therapy. It's a new dose. A therapy is antibiotics to chemo. And that's what you do. If you push yes, it erases your entire program. And that's why people hate it. So is this a new therapy? No. Prime set. Okay. If you prime the set, this has to be open, of course. And you say yes, it's going to say disconnect patient. If you don't push yes, you'll stand there till forever. So you say yes, and it's pumping 800 mLs an hour, and it goes pretty fast. Okay? Then you have to push stop and exit. And now you're back to the first step of your program. I programmed it for 50 mLs an hour for 15 minutes. Okay? Okay. Now step 2, 100 mLs an hour for 15 minutes. You press OK, and it tells you the volume. Okay. 50 mLs an hour for 15 minutes is 12.5 mLs. It's 12.5, then 25. Step 3 was 100 mLs for an hour, and the rest of it was 175 for the rest of the. So what you have to do is figure out how many mLs is in each step and how much of it is left when you have to do your 175 or 200 mLs an hour. The Curlin will tell you, if you set the time and the rate, it'll tell you what the volume is going to be. Or at volume and rate, it'll tell you the time. This one does not. You have to tell it what to do. Okay? And that's all there is to it. Its quirk then is plug it in, make sure it's clean, and you line it in. Is this a new therapy? No, it is not a new therapy. It is a new dose. That's your biggest point. And it's got a start and it's got an on-off. And that's it. It's the biggest part of it. This thing, the problem with this pump is it's heavy. This thing probably weighs 12 pounds, which was okay when it was sitting on the table. Now that it's sitting on the pump, put it on the connection where you tighten the thing, put it on top of that, because at least it gives us something to rest on, and screw it in tight. If this falls, first of all, it'll break. Secondly, who's ever under it is going to be in danger. Watch out with children, because these poles are not the sturdy ones. Years ago, you had those poles like they had from the hospital with big wide feet. These things are $3, so they are really light and tinny, and even screwing this in, you'll probably dent the pole. If you do, ask for another one. Just, it'll work for a while, but eventually the poles just, they start to bleed. Nurses fix them with tape, and they do all kinds of, the nurses can build bridges with tape. So, make sure you have it on tight, and if there's children around, be careful. You don't want, or the animals. Okay, back into the Vista pump. You can play with it, whatever, if you want to afterwards. The next one is CAD. Everybody, I think, probably knows this one. This is the simplest pump they ever made. It doesn't have an on and off. It has a battery. That's all it has. On this side, watch this little thing. This is easily lost in your papers or whatever. I dropped it on the floor. The dog got it. I won, but it was a chase. It was chewing on this little thing. When you put it in, if it makes no noise, just turn it over. It does have a plus on it, but most of us just whip it in there. This one has a little problem too, and the problem is right here. This thing engages inside to turn the pump on. Eventually it wears out inside and it won't turn all the way. So if you get one, they tell you to use a coin. The coin is hard to hold on to. I find if it's a dime or a penny or you lost your penny, I have a screwdriver, it's about this long. And I put it in my bag and I carry the screwdriver. It's easier, it gives you some force on it. Push it in and you turn it.
And nickel works good.
Nickel works good,
Grab
a little bit more,
it's a
grab.
little thicker.
Okay. So then take that to the inside of your patient's chart, so the next person covering for you has the nickel if they need it. Gives you a little layer. And it's very slow, you can program it, it takes forever. If I find out when I'm doing this that it's beginning to be a little difficult, I have to do it a little extra, I'm ordering a new pump today, because next time it's not gonna work. Be aware, it's not gonna, it won't last forever. So it has all these little things. Next to advance, the reservoir will be whatever was left from the last time, so just push it up and enter. And then it goes to the rate, whatever you want. It'll be set probably at the last rate you had, so put it down to whatever you want, enter. Next it will say mLs given. You want to clear it, enter. And it's ready to go. Put your tubing in. Does everybody know this one? Is everybody comfortable with this pump?
No, I'm not comfortable with this one.
Okay. So, one more thing we need to know about this pump. Last week I went to do a case, and I loaded it in. I did my thing. It got to 100 mLs, and it wouldn't go any further. Because they had sent me CAD administration tubing, not CAD high flow. It will not go over 100 mLs an hour. Take a look at the size of this tubing in comparison. One of them is tiny, the other one is like a garden hose. So it will only carry 100 mLs an hour. It also comes with and without filters, depending on what your drug is. It's usually a 1.2 filter. They all come with filters or non-filtered. Most of the drugs we're not filtering. And that's all there is to that one. The feet of it, I'll take this out. I'm not comfortable with this one. Let me do this. You know how to do this, right, Barbara? Would you help Natasha how you put your feet in it? It's got little hooks that go under the metal. And once you hook the little feet underneath, you have to really hold down the other side or it won't engage. The little blue clip on the tubing holds the tubing open, so that if you're going to hand prime, all you have to do is open the clamp and it will flow. Make sure you pull that blue clamp. You have to pull the blue clamp before you put it
They
into
say
the
to
pump.
turn it over when you're pushing the, that thing, and press it on the table.
Try it. Here, you wanna
Yeah.
try it?
A little better,
Push it on the table or
yeah.
push it down.
Like if you flip it over and rest it on the table, it's easier to flip the whole pump over.
Especially if it's a well-used one.
Right.
That's it. You have to hold it tight.
Yeah, flip the pump over and set it on the table so that you're pushing
She wants you to push down on the bottom, but she's getting it
the
okay.
end.
If
I
your
got
hands
it.
are fairly strong,
Yeah,
you're okay.
right.
Yeah,
For the little
I
old
got
ladies,
practice
this would be
with it.
very difficult.
Right.
You know, if they have arthritic hands or something, it's very hard to do. Okay,
Cool.
thank you. The next one is the curling pump. This is my favorite pump in the world because it will do anything. It does 5 programs. It will do pain management, continuous, TPN, intermittent, and variable. Variable is what we use with the IgG with progressive. The intermittent is very nice for patients on antibiotics. If it's every 4 hours or every 6 hours. Previously, before this, they were getting up at 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock and starting their IVs. This was a nightmare. So this one really made a big difference in that population. It will do whatever you set it for, and then KVO at 0.2 mLs an hour in between, and then start the dose and stop. You can interrupt it. We don't tell the patients this too often. Usually, after the last dose, and you know you've got 3.5 hours before the next one, you can take him off it. Okay, go take a shower. This battery out. And whatever, and then put it back on. And the pump remembers. It'll pick right up where it left off. It'll pick up where it left off and give you the next dose on time. Once you are delayed, if you don't connect yourself an hour into that dose, it's going to hold it for the next time. So you'll miss one dose. If they take, instead of 3.5, they take 4.5 hours, well, guess what? You missed a dose. But it'll start on time. It uses dedicated tubing. Also comes with and without filters. The way I remember this one, which filter it is the blue ones are big. They are 1.2 mLs, the others are 0.22, so blue is big. You get one that's too small, not going to be so good. And if it's too big, it's not going to do the job you needed it for. I believe chemo uses 0.22. Okay. So this one goes into its, you plugged it in, left it open. It has a little yellow cap here. Twist that off, and what that does is closes the tubing. Wide open like this, you can prime by hand. Just squeeze it, it'll prime. When you let it go, there's a little spring in there that tightens up. Okay, so you've plugged it in. Blue and yellow. Blue goes in first, and you can't be wrong because it won't fit any other way. This little blue square fits in here. Here's the only problem. If you put it behind this, on this side, you've crunched the tubing. It's not going to run. It has to be in front of the tubing. It's got a little notch cut out for it. Try and get it in the middle of the space. Goes in with the fat side down here. Because when it closes, that little button you're squeezing to hand prime is pushed down by this. So won't go in any other way. Seat it well, centered in the middle. This is why you have to sit on the table. And push it down and clamp. A workhorse almost never gives you problems, except we discovered a problem this morning. If they are giving, what was the patient on? What therapy was he on? Intermittent?
TPN.
TPN.
No ramp up, 2 hours ramp down.
Okay, no ramp up. So when the father set the tubing, he primed it. He put the tubing in, he primed it, and then he reviewed it. He pushed no for review. And what the review did was subtract the priming volume. Okay for this time, but he turned it off. When he turned it on next time and it said reset volume, it set it minus the priming volume. And every time he used it, it went down. So, if you want to review it, after you've primed it, turn it off. Turn it off totally, and start again. Turn it back on, and it's going to give you the original priming volume. That was something we learned today. It goes through all of the steps. It tells you the internal power. If it's less than a half, I wouldn't leave it for intermittent. On TPN, put a new one in every day. That pulls a lot of juice for 8-10 hours, and it's heavy stuff to push, so it's going to take a lot of juice. It says program or biomed setup. You put program, and it will say resume, repeat RX, or new program. If it's a new program, then you're going to have to call Quorum, or I understand Trinity wants to be called, to set this with the pharmacist. If not, Accredo does not do this, correct? Accredo does not do this. So you need to be really comfortable with this if you're going to change it. It says resume. Resume means it's going to start right where you left off. Okay? The patient has on TPN, he sees he's got this much left and he really wants to take a shower, so he turns it off. They do it all the time. You can catch them every time. They always DC it at the end of the ramp down, or sometimes in the middle. So it's going to start there. It'll run that 10 cc's and turn off. The patient's frustrated. Why? Okay, so resume, no. Repeat RX, arrow down, yes. And that's going to start again. Yes to repeat. It's checking you twice. Are we in continuous? This one is in continuous. If it was programmed for variable, you would say yes and then it goes through mLs, bag volume, how many doses, KVO, amount to be infused each step and whatnot. And if this is your first time with it and it's a new patient, you're doing a startup, you look at this and these things are going so fast, nowhere you're going to catch up. So now you're frustrated. Just wait till it finishes and push no. And now it'll do one thing at a time. Say mLs, yes. Doses 4, yes. Yes, yes. And you can check your orders without losing your mind. Run to start, no to review, or options. Options are all kinds of things like raising the volume, changing the KVO, all those things. Those should probably be already set, not a problem with that. Okay? Want to play with it? Anybody that's not familiar? Uncomfortable? You know it all? Okay. You have to pause it before you can turn it off. That's just a safety factor. Couple things that we wanted to review. One of the things that's very important that we found to be a problem is that people are mixing their IgG before they place their IV. Don't ever do that. It is against policy, number one, and it's a dangerous thing, so I will tell you a war story, because people love war stories. When I was working for another company, one of the agencies called us and they said, we have a problem. The nurse mixed the IV and she can't get the IV. She lost the IV, she couldn't get it in. And the patient said, I don't want any more sticks. So you can't call anybody down to help you because he's done and that's his right. She did what she could do to persuade him that maybe tomorrow morning I could come. Nope, I'm done, I'm going to the doctor's office. So here we had the drug mixed. And it was expensive. And who's going to pay for that? The insurance company will not pay for a wasted drug. The patient certainly isn't going to. It behooves now the nurse or the agency. The nurse couldn't. The agency paid $23,000 for trash. Right down the sink. And fired the nurse. It's crazy not to do this. It doesn't take any more time to place the IV and mix it than mix it and place the IV. There's no time wasted here. Be safe. It's a big waste of money and a big threat to you. You have to follow what our policy is, and that's the policy of every agency that I know of. In nursing, in medicine, if you don't follow the policy, you are at risk. Always. So if you ever have to go to court, God help us, hope we don't, the first question they'll ask you is, did you follow your agency's policy? And if you cannot say yes, and they'll prove it, if you say no, you just lost your case. Hands down.
With the medication Cinrise, you can't start the IV unless you prime it with the Cinrise.
Ah.
So that's going to be another interesting scenario. And it's
What's the name of the drug?
It's expensive, and it's twice a week or every 3 to 4 days. So you have to get an IV in every 3 to 4 days, and you have to have that medication ready to go.
What's the name of it?
Cinrise.
Cinrise.
It's for angioedema.
For angioedema. So you have to prime it.
Cerazon.
You have to start the IV with the drug.
Yes, yeah. I haven't given it yet, but I just,
Good to know.
patient
Good to
is
know.
gonna have that.
They are not aware then of the possibility of you not being able to get an IV in.
I sometimes prime it with the saline though.
Yeah, the criteria is to use the medication.
I'd be safe, I do it with the same.
I do the saline and then switch sometimes.
You start with saline.
Especially if your patient is iffy with.
And there's no priming after the infusion either.
So there's
That's
nothing
the
to get whatever's there out
criteria.
of the tubing.
So you don't know if the company's gonna even give you the saline to have in the house.
That would be an interesting thing to bring up with the agency.
I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, initially, their criteria was a year ago, patients to start their own IVs.
Patients
Yeah.
should start their own IVs.
Right.
I don't think that's going to fly.
No.
I don't know too many that are willing to do that or able to do that.
Right, that's probably
Wow.
why they changed criteria.
Wow. Okay. The other thing we wanted to cover are basic anakits. I've been going out doing supervisory visits, and it's always a surprise. Where's your anakit? I don't know. One woman asked me if, or the nurse asked the patient, isn't it upstairs in the closet? So this is dangerous if you've ever had a reaction on a patient, anything at all. There's that feeling you get right away that you know you need to have your anakit close by. A lot of nurses I saw leave it literally on the table. Okay, we're doing IV, here's my anakit, right here. Tape it inside the box so you know where it is before you get there. You don't have to go scuffling for it if you need it. People think that you're safe if you've given it to this patient a lot. You know, the patient always has it, he's been having it for years, and he has a reaction. I had one. I had a patient who was getting Gamagard 130 grams for 14 years. Never had a reaction until he did. And he got hives the size of tennis balls all over him, itching. He had no trouble breathing, but PO Benadryl took care of it in 20 minutes. Thank goodness. So if you don't have one, I make it a practice now. If they don't have anakit, I don't start it. That's it. So be cautious. It's your license. Be careful. Protect it. And it's policy. So, questions? Anything anybody's had a problem? Oh, one more thing. On glass bottle IgG, you spike it, and you're running it, and it starts to slow down, and you see blood coming back out of the tubing from the patient. What's the problem? Air vent. You don't have any air. Has to be. And those things are packed with pretty much pressure, so they're almost, there's no air available. Once it uses the little bit it's got, it's done. So what do? A lot of people take a needle and they stick it in, and that works. It'll work. The problem is, one, it drips. So now you got a wood floor or a carpet. You have to worry about that. And the dog's licking it. And it's opening the bottle to the air, which is not sterile. So that's a problem. There is an answer to this. It's called a vented spike.
Yeah.
And this is one of the best things you'll ever, everybody familiar with this? If you're not, get familiar with it. It is really a handy thing. Sometimes they just send it, even though the tubing may have a vent, but it may not be enough. Sometimes it's not enough. Okay. This is it. And all it is the end of an IV tubing with a vent. That's all it is. It's nothing spectacular. I think your nurse figured this one out. Because you spike the bag, then you spike the tubing into this tubing into the bag, and into the spike. This goes in the tubing in the bottle. This goes into the tubing here. It's got a hole in the bottom.
I've never used one.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
let me show you. Just close this off.
And I guess you would have to ask the pharmacy to send you that.
You put it in your order, okay? So this goes in here, and this goes in here.
Okay.
If this didn't have a vent, you now have a vent.
Cool.
And that little thing will save you so much pain and drips. It's closed now, so, and it's got a preventer on it, but that's how it goes. If you're giving a glass bottle, you have to have that. If you're using more than one bottle, you can change it to the next bottle.
It's
It's
called a
the sharps.
vented,
Sorry?
the name is a vented
Vented spike,
spike.
vented spike adapter. You have to ask for it. Quorum doesn't send them out unless you order it. Anybody that has the glass bottles, most of the time they send them. So I would always ask for them, so you've always got them available. The needle works, but that's what we use, and somebody said, hey, all he needs is a vent, so it works.
Or cooling bags.
What?
Cooling bags.
Cooling bags, yeah. Sometimes to get it out of the bottle into the cooling bag, I've had to use one of these. The bottle just won't run, so I've had to use this at a time. Okay, questions?
Yes. On the Vista, new therapy,
Mhm.
I push yes all the time. And I guess,
It's a bad wording. It should have been repeat dose or new drug or something of that nature.
but the patient who gets it, you know, it goes according to, you know, it starts at 30 an hour, 30 an hour, 45 an hour. So I guess it just works fine for me that I ruined that I erased the therapy.
Yeah,
So I'm, in other
You have
words,
to
I'm
reprogram
putting
it.
I'm putting it in each time I'm there.
right.
So I put in 450 mLs.
Do
to
you
be
do it in
infused.
steps?
I
Step
get
one,
up
step
every
two?
15 minutes and do it.
Okay, that's what I find people do, because it works. Nurses will find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
It may not be kosher, but it's the way it'll work. But now you know.
Now
So
I know.
once you set it, just turn it off and you turn it back on. Is this a new therapy? No.
I got it now.
But you have to do it in steps. You have to set it in steps. Play with this before you leave, so that you can set it. And we'll, I'll just clear it out, and you can reprogram it, okay? Is this a new therapy? I'm gonna say yes, because you're gonna redo it. Prime set? No. And it will default to continuous. Okay. So, at that point, you push options, and it will say taper mode for TPN. No. Options again. Program mode, on. And that's it. You program it. It's, believe it or not, picking it up on what was on there before, but try it. Take this up, and you can try it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. Eileen?
Did we go over, like, you went over different important points of,
Anna kids,
Okay.
IV before you mix drug, any drug, not just Gamma Guard, but any good.
okay. Home charts? Did we talk about
Home charts. What I'm finding on the soup is there's no copy left in the home. And it should be. First of all, it's policy. Secondly, if I follow you, I have no idea what the patient's blood pressure is, what you gave. Did you give it a certain way so the patient doesn't have a reaction? Have you slowed it down from what the order said? I don't know. It's cold, and that's not a good way to ever do your visit. It's dangerous for the drug, dangerous for the patient. So please leave a copy. And the patient is supposed to sign it. We're finding that too. It's not signed. That is a state law, that your record has to be signed by the patient. And what that does is prevent fraud.
You know, prompt care doesn't have a place for the patient to sign, and I just have them
Just
sign
sign it
every
somewhere.
sheet.
Sign it
bottom.
somewhere.
Even though there's no patient line, I just do it routinely.
There have been cases whereby a nurse has put in an incorrect time on their visit, usually longer than they were there. Happened in another place. And that is manipulation of a medical record. That's fraud. No matter, it's actually a felony. And you can go to jail for that. It's not the medication they're changing, it's the time, and it's for money, but it's still changing a medical record, and it's illegal. So don't mess with it. Okay, anything else? Candy, what have you got to offer? What pearls of knowledge?
I have a patient I see every day. He tried this and the rest of the paper off and throws it out.
He rips it up and throws it out. Well, I tear them off and put in the folder,
Mom doesn't
but
care
you've
about
done your
it.
thing. I do have to tell you, I have one patient whose record I take with me. I carry it with me, I take it into the house every time. And if anyone is gonna see the patient, they need to
Yeah.
call me, because they can never find it. It's lost, and I then have no record either. So if you're going to see this patient, I'm gonna call you and say, this is what he does, we'll make a copy, I'll fax you a copy. It's impossible to keep track of it. I went to one patient that kept it under their living room rug. I mean, people are very strange.
What's gonna happen now with, if you're covering patients or taking patients and the patient has been on electronic records from other nurses.
That's a problem too. Quorum's using electronics for some of their some of
They
their
just have
nurses
the
haven't.
patient sign the computer,
Yeah,
and then they're done.
I mean,
And
you know,
there's nothing in
it's,
the house.
you are at a loss, because you don't, you know, you won't have a visit
Right.
note in the home.
They're supposed to leave a paper that leaves vital signs and whatnot. You probably won't find it.
We have electronics?
Quorum does,
Oh.
Quorum for their, like, full-time nurses. But we are switching over, our paperwork is gonna be, you'll be able to eventually use, like, you know, your own, you know, if you have like an iPad and stuff, certain,
Very cool.
our paperwork, you know, we'll be able to upload certain companies' paperwork, where you'll be able to do them electronically.
Are we gonna have to do that?
It'll be optional, yeah,
Uh-huh.
it'll be optional.
Again, how did the paperwork get in the home then? That's gonna be,
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
gonna have the
that's
same situation.
something, yeah, you know, there's that fine line where, when it's done electronically, you're not gonna have that hard copy.
They can always print it and send it.
It's going away. I mean, it's becoming a law that
Thanks so much.
everything will have to be electronic.
Right.
And I guess it's supposed to be a safety factor, that things can't be lost, but, you know, knowing how electronics are today, I don't know if it has to be a protected site.
I guess what will happen is print a copy and mail it to the patient's home.
If you could print a copy, that would be fine, you know, but I don't know that there's portable printers around that we could carry around either. It might be that if you're going to do that, you make a copy of it yourself for your own records or something, or get a copy from Eileen who emailed to you so that you were going in. It'll be something we have to figure out. All these new things make another problem.
The other thing we're starting to do is, as we update the plan of treatment, see, Marion helps me out with those. The plan of treatments need to be updated every 6 months, okay? So when you guys open up cases in the patient's home, whether it's Quorum, Long Island Healthcare, you guys do the initial plan of treatments, and then I do the ongoing plan of treatments. So what we're doing is, when we do the ongoing plan of treatments, we send it off to the physician for signature. As soon as we get those back, we're gonna be mailing you guys out those copies so you can put them in the patient's home chart, so that you'll have updated. Because once in a while, the doctors, believe it or not, they read them, they don't just sign them. Sometimes they'll make sometimes they'll make a little bit of changes, schedule, you know, like dosing changes, things like that. I mean, if that's the case, you guys know about that. Hello, ladies. You're just in time for the pizza. You missed Miriam's pumpkin service. No. Should go over some stuff again. But you know what, that's no
Right
pizza.
now your steps, what you
Grab some pizza.
This is the only one I haven't done either.
Okay.
Right now your steps.
I was planning, but my thing is, if his blood pressure goes up,
Yeah,
then
no.
I
I
can't
wasn't
down,
planning
so
to.
we can't.
I know, you won't want
I don't do it now.
You kinda gotta do it.
Can
We'll do one-to-one if you guys, if you need something.
Oh, yes, no.
Program. Okay.
What do you want your step, what do you want it to be? Alright, so we want it to be now.
Everybody comfortable with this one? If you're not, come on around, she's
Yeah.
programming this.
You starting from scratch?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Alright, yeah.
no.
No, okay, one second.
Can you bring some down some salad tongs?
You just put the two in
Yeah,
and
I don't know if we
say.
have a bowl for the
Right.
salad.
We're gonna clear all that.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Yeah,
Is this a
you
new
got-
therapy?
Yes.
I don't know if we have an extra, like.
And it's always
plates up
no,
there.
unless, if you're giving
It's
another
always-
dose. This is a totally new
Okay.
therapy.
All
So
right.
if you're doing a repeat,
We're not gonna prime. And then we're going to options 2
You want
times.
some salad dressing on that?
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
paper mode clear. This will clear all in this. Okay.
She's gonna do.
Program.
On.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, so step 1, I wanna go with
Still got it
30.
in there. What do you wanna do?
I wanna go 30
So this requires
cc's.
Sicilian.
It's not Sicilian. Times a half hour.
There it is.
You want
So I wanna go
Sicilian or
30
regular?
cc's for a half
No,
hour.
pizza?
So you wanted 60 mLs an hour
No,
for half an hour?
For on that plate or you want
No.
another plate?
What is the rate per hour?
Per hour,
He's like, oh, your son, I was giving him a hard time. He's adorable, I was like,
Okay.
Okay,
very cute.
and how much is it gonna be?
Yeah, I have to decide who's gonna
We're
post
doing
it.
half an hour, 60 mLs an hour for half an hour.
And it
Me and my
was-
husband was both on
I'm sorry,
vacation
thanks.
that week, so,
Oh, yeah?
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good, thanks.
step 2.
This has some-
okay, then we're gonna go up to,
Thank you.
okay, then we're going to 45.
Oh, Sandra, yeah, this is
45
Pam
an
Day,
hour?
so you got, you cover for Scott Gober.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
An hour.
Complimented you.
Thank you.
So pleased.
Exit, no, just push 90.
How's he doing? Still every week now?
I'm like, what do you think of when you do
So is he gonna
rolling
have,
Oh, I see what
is he
you're
waiting
saying.
for that kidney transplant? What's going on there?
Huh, interesting, I don't need to go back.
Every time they plan to do it, they move it up for a year.
Do they, yeah?
Oh,
Supposedly he's considered stable,
Okay.
so.
You know, it's like anything else, if they can put it off, if you really, you know. you know,
That's why I write it
Step
down.
one, okay, so we're going to
Well,
take
he's gonna get
60
it.
an hour.
Then you will be-
60, okay.
Just a matter of time.
And that will be 30 cc's.
Is he on the list?
Okay, now we're going
He
up
is on
to
the list.
45, which
But
is
every time they
90,
move it around.
and that will be
Somebody
okay,
want
and
more.
45
This is the brother's
cc's.
gonna do.
I got it.
Oh, okay, so he's ready.
I
He
got
has a
it.
done
Okay.
already.
That's all right, when you wanted more, okay, you
And
want
then we go.
100 an hour,
His brother's
okay, and the
already,
volume will
just,
be,
his levels are
Okay.
stable.
so,
Got it.
but you
Got
still
it.
have to know what your total is, and
This
if
is
it,
why
once you get to this,
things are okay for them.
you push okay, because it's 0, it wants to know the last step, so okay, we want 0. Now it's, okay, total
Now
volume
you're
is gonna
ready
be
to start.
125, and
He's very
it'll be
pleased.
okay,
He tells me every time.
start.
Well,
Because if
my
you go
total
away,
volume's
I want you
450.
to relieve nerves.
Okay, so you, how long do you have to do that then? Once you've gone for half an hour, half an hour, half an hour, you're gonna have to add up,
He spends half his time on the phone.
Oh, yeah, he's
You're gonna
a
have to
business
add up.
person,
30,
international.
45,
Having meetings all the
and
time.
whatever your totals are of
He's been with
mLs.
us for a long time.
Subtract it
Since
from
like
your total volume.
2005,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Got it?
Total
Yeah.
mLs and minus from.
Yeah, he talks to guys in India
Okay.
and Japan.
There you
go.
and the West
And what I
Coast.
Now I have to get up and down every day.
Exactly, what I would do is
Yeah,
always
when
set
it's
it
a scheduled
at least
time,
50
everybody's
mLs
there.
higher in your total volume than you really
11
have.
o'clock, there it is, 11 o'clock.
Because sometimes those bags of IgG will be just 25 or 30 mLs more. And if you run out and you still have volume, now you're gonna start at the low rate again. You can't change it in the middle and say
Right.
more, so you have to go back to 25 mLs.
That's what
Got
sounds.
We don't wanna
Yeah,
do
that's
that.
the only
And
one
it beeps
that's
when you get near the end,
Because in these things.
and it's annoying to the patient. Are we done? Are we done?
Mix
Are we done yet?
Yeah.
Oh, set it for 50
Gotcha.
mLs higher, doesn't matter,
Thank you.
just your total volume higher,
Okay,
Yeah.
quick
so
question.
you don't irritate yourself.
Was there supposed to be there's no change, so when you set this program, you can't go back or change?
Not in the middle of the program. Not in the middle of the program.
I was wondering what the other one was.
All you could do would be stop it and go back to continuous, or go back to the first
So for
step
the,
again.
so for the IGIG, you program it all one time?
Yes, you program it all one time,
Okay.
and
Yes, please.
tell you that it's full battery.
Yeah, thanks.
Battery left 1 hour and 40 minutes. Run 3 hours on battery, it's fully charged. And it has to be charged all the time, has to be plugged in.
Just that, no.
No, we never
Or
do
she's
that.
like that, she's nasty.
I worked with Celia back years ago.
Yeah.
See, you know everybody.
I know, right?
And then I heard your voice from Quorum and I said, oh my God, I know that voice.
Of course you know that voice.
No, I mean, this hand
Yes.
is funny.
It's a related.
What were you remember first up?
You're giving
Yeah,
ICD
yeah.
this week, the answer
How many
Yes.
years ago was
It's
that?
not a new therapy, it's a
Long
new dose.
time. That has to be a long
Okay,
time, yeah.
but you're gonna program yours now,
Okay, let's go.
okay? You're doing it with form, and this is the only person who uses it, you have to call them.
Give the doctors a
So Corum does not,
They send it out pre-programmed.
yeah.
But they don't, unless the doctor says, I want
Yeah,
50 mLs an hour for half an hour, I want
Or-
this, I want that. They're gonna
See, they
program it, yep, it's
Right.
400 mLs over 4 hours, they're gonna program 100 mLs an hour.
And how far out inside the county are you?
And that's not what you want.
So they don't
Can't show that,
titrate.
we'll make sure that.
They're not gonna titrate it at all,
Yeah, no.
unless the doctor says it.
You're
You
out
know
there.
these
Yeah,
tablets
it's
just
just
make
go to
patients.
his house.
So,
Just
right
yeah,
now,
that's why I never come here.
I know.
okay,
It's
How long
like, it's
did you-
really far.
It just-
being there.
How is he doing in school and everything?
I
He's
figured
doing
he
okay?
was.
He's
Yeah.
doing much better.
That's 12
Right.
and a half years
Yeah.
old.
Another guy moved in, in the house, in that apartment, you know, they share a room.
Yeah,
This is
so,
their-
but they've been in that place for a while now, right?
Private set.
What, like
You have to have
4
it
years,
voted in.
something
So you
like
take mostly Nassau County pictures?
Oh,
Yeah, what you
It's
missed
up-
was,
You hunt this up
Did
and
we go to that apartment?
Here is
I have one patient in
It's
section.
And
They
where is
separate
that?
it. Now they rent out.
Because I started with her with many staff.
Right,
And she was in Massapequa,
Child.
then we went out to, I
Child.
don't know, what
It
else.
says it's
And now,
and it irritates.
Now, do you know Lynette?
Yeah.
Because Lynette covers for Seville.
Yeah.
You met Lynette, you met her before, okay.
And clean it all the way down.
So-
Make sure it's nice and clean.
you know, then when it so long,
That's
got to
what
give her up.
Right.
Okay,
And they
so
get used
you
to
load
doing
it
it.
all with oil,
Yeah.
push it in
And then she's
firmly.
out east
Uh-huh.
for the
13-year-old
summer, so
helps
a girl
out.
out there does that.
Uh-huh.
Well, helps them
Yeah,
with
that's what
homework.
happened, one of my patients, the son is from the city.
Private set, now we would fry it.
At Ronald McDonald House staying.
He's good.
Well, the son is from.
Because you know, with the curriculum,
It's
now,
got us.
I mean, it's- you know how they change
It's
it.
got
how
special
important-
cooking.
And you know, it's so funny, I was
So I
just
can't
talking
imagine
to
my
Celia
daughter
about
being
Ellen
English as a second language.
that
Somebody's kids.
from Maysdale.
How much,
Right.
how
Uh-huh.
important.
Oh,
So
they
you
allowed
get
you to
together
go.
with her.
You allowed
You
to
keep
go.
up with her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Uh-huh.
good.
That's so long.
Where's Ellen?
Yeah.
I just called her on the way here. I said,
Oh.
I haven't heard. Tell her I say hello, Kathy.
I will.
And they sit on the
I used
floor
to
and
see
they
them
do
all
the
the
work
time
on the
because
floor.
instead of
You're
mailing
out
them
there.
a
How's
note,
it doing?
I was 2 miles
He's
from
being
work,
calm, he's, you know,
around the corner
not
basically.
drinking as
So I
much.
drop off my notes and
Mm-hmm.
problem is you end up sitting and
Every
gabbing
time I
back.
come in,
Right.
I go in, he's in the back.
This can be,
Or they're anything from him.
and Karen,
Complain
I
about
run
him.
up with Karen,
Something
and
is doing.
So prime
Is
is
he
set,
working
you
things
call
out?
me a couple of times.
Uh-huh.
I have
6 days a
remembered,
week.
false to continuous.
Yeah, the little one, how old is he? Is he in school?
Caring hands.
He's supposed to second grade.
that's
is
what
Mom
she asked
working
me,
on
the
it?
note
She doing
is
it?
out,
Now
what is
it's
out?
Mom stays home.
That's an agency, she asked me to fill in a few times.
Oh, really?
And
He's
This
nice.
is
I said,
already
you know what?
Just set everything up.
I don't feel
So I'm gonna
comfortable
clear
with
Well,
this.
that's it. But
Was it
They didn't have
infusion or
mine.
was it
Everything else is
infusion?
done now.
Yeah, it was.
It was
Okay.
infusion.
But they had no paperwork on me, you know what I mean?
Right.
How are you gonna get through?
Figure out.
nowadays I
Right,
talk,
figure out
nowadays I talk to
how
them
much
when I
you
make
wanna
appointments,
give,
schedule
don't
changes.
The rate you wanna give it,
I
You know,
call them, I say, listen, I'll do
how
this,
long
I'll
you
do
wanna
it at
give
5
it.
o'clock, okay?
They operated at their system.
Cause if you don't, you're gonna.
He's got a
There
subsidy.
wasn't
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're home, place, like yours. I don't think
Mom
I
listens
worked
to
there.
me because
I felt that it was so
communicates better.
haphazard, that I felt that
mom
for
forgets,
any
mom
issues,
doesn't say anything
they had,
sometimes.
Okay, 10 mLs an
I told
hour,
Mom,
10
I'll be
mLs,
there
it was no
tomorrow.
15 minutes, is how much per
Right.
hour?
Now, let's face it, Karen.
About 40 mLs an hour, we'll give you 10 mLs.
So I
You
tell
know
them,
that.
Is that what you want?
yeah, no,
I want everything on time.
whenever I
10
do
mLs an hour?
and be the phone and say, I don't know what they're talking about, you
Yeah.
talk to them.
The schedule.
That's why I
You know
never
what,
go there and
it's
fix one
easier for them
patient
to
and
kind
then
of
get
keep that
all
Okay,
their
and then
But,
20 mLs an hour.
I'll see you at 5 every
Good.
day,
Go.
every day.
And how long you
So
run
he
it
knows.
I'm not
From
going to.
school,
Okay, but how many mLs an hour is that?
4 to 5, 5 o'clock, I'm there.
It was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So there's
And
no way.
I didn't know,
times.
because I had never done home care
Unless
this
I
would
do
be
it
one
so
all year,
that was
or if I see
what I
Manucci,
knew,
then I go
I
see
know,
him,
and
this
this would
one
be
is just
12
waiting
years
for 5.
Exactly,
I was.
so that's what
Me
you
too.
tell them.
Yeah. You know, Natasha
I was
took over
devastated.
children.
No, I don't